he's not wondering what's happened. He's trying to reveal with us what's happening. When we begin to open up our own assumptions by asking those difficult questions about the doubts we actually have that maybe we try to hide, or maybe those things that didn't work out we try to hide, but God is revealing that, and that's exactly what he's going to be doing here. And so they're walking along. Jesus is just listening. They're talking. And then verse 17, it says, Jesus then begins to speak up, and he says, what's this conversation that you're talking about? They knew that Jesus was a Jew. Like, they didn't know it was Jesus. They somehow was kept from them, but they must have been thinking, are you serious? What happened? The person that our people have been praying for thousands of years, the Messiah. Remember, like a week ago, he came into town. We put palm branches down. We were worshiping him. The kids were worshiping him. Like everybody. It was about to happen. The thing that we prayed for, the thing that we've been longing for was about to happen. What do you mean, what are we talking about? Because Jesus is close and he can hear. It's like, you know what we're talking about. And the Bible even talks about that they're walking along and then they're sad and they just stop. If you've ever been through a tragedy, and some people haven't, but you just live long enough, it comes for everybody. But they're walking and then they just stop and they look sad. And one of the disciples, we don't know both their names, but one of them is Cleopas, and he said in verse 18, are you the only visitor in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened these days? Like all the Romans, all the Jews, like everybody knows what happened. They killed an innocent man. And we thought he was going to be the Messiah. That's what we thought. And Jesus, I love how Jesus just presses a little bit. You ever had God speak into your life? Maybe it's through other people, but he just presses a little bit more. And then he continues and says, 19, what things? It's like, dude, seriously. Okay, Jesus, like, I thought I explained this, and he digs deeper because he's trying to reveal those deeper assumptions because your perception determines your direction. And Jesus knows that. So he's opening up their assumptions. And I love God's word. He even shows us this. The psalmist is doing the same thing where he's asking God he's inviting him in to open me up. Psalm 139:23 says, search me, God, and know my heart, and test me, and know my anxious thoughts. God knows you have anxious thoughts. God knows you have doubts and worries, and you have some things that didn't work out the way they were supposed to, or you thought that they were supposed to. But he's saying, invite me in. Know my anxious thoughts. And he answers the question in verse 19. Okay, Jesus, or he didn't know he's Jesus, but okay, strange man, I'm never going to ask your name because this is just weird. I'm just in this devastating situation. Never ask his name. But he said, okay, I'll answer your question. Verse 19, concerning Jesus of Nazareth. And this is what reveals what he wants, because he reveals the perception that he has in Jesus. Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was, past tense, a prophet only. Mighty in word and deed between God and all people. We thought he was going to be this way. He was a prophet. He was a great man of God. He was maybe even the Messiah, but he's dead. That's not working out so well. And we see this is a key part, and this can help absolutely everybody. The next verse in 21, where he reveals what he actually wants and what he thinks he was robbed of. But we had hoped he would be the one to redeem Israel. We had some expectations of Jesus, and he failed us. We thought it was going to work out this way, but it didn't. We did everything he said. We followed the rules. We followed him. We did everything we were supposed to do. But this is how it turned out. We'd hoped that it would be this way. And in summary, verse 22 and 24, we see clearly that they had all the evidence of the empty tomb. They even report back to this man who's Jesus. They don't know this yet. They report back to him. Yeah, well, some of the women went to the tomb and they said it was empty. They report that back and they talk about angels and all these miraculous things, but they're saying, but we don't know. And clearly they have a perception. Why? Because their direction is indicating their perception. And they had some unrealized expectations. I think this can help all of us. There's sort of a view of this because basically it says something happened, but we had hoped. So fill in the blanks, whatever those things are. Something happened. Some tragedy happened. Some issue happened. Somebody didn't treat you right. Whatever it was, something happened. But then, this is what I hope for. A couple examples, maybe a loss of friendship happened. A relationship ended. Something happened. But I'd hoped this would be the acceptance that I always wanted. I thought this would be it. Or maybe divorce happens. I didn't plan for it, but divorce happened. But I'd hoped this would be the one. I'd hoped this was going to be it. Or maybe that thing came back up and relapse happened. Maybe that's a substance. Maybe that's a food. Maybe that's pornography. Maybe that's sexual relationship. Maybe that's that broken relationship that you know is not good for you, but it just happened. Relapse happened. But I'd hoped I could manage it. I thought I was over it. But that happened. And there's some ways that I think can kind of help us through this and give us sort of a framework that can help us work through some of these things that are unrealized expectations. And virtually all conflict, whether that's internal, questions you have, issues you have, expectations you thought you had, or maybe it's conflict externally. Someone treated you a certain way or acted a certain way, but all conflict comes from unrealized expectations. We had some expectations of some people, or maybe of ourselves, or maybe like these disciples, they had some expectations of God, but he didn't deliver because they had some assumptions about how he should act. We hoped he'd be the one, but they clearly believe. Obviously, he wasn't. So there's a framework. The first thing that might be helpful is to first just figure out what in the world happened. What happened? The disciples did this. They had some unrealized expectations. A tragedy happened. Okay, what happened? Let's just talk about it. Let's evaluate it. Let's be honest about what happened. And the next thing, which is so crucial to our perception, is what does it mean? We even do this if someone said something, and then we take that with our perception. Oh, because they said this, because that relationship ended this way, I'm no good. I'm worthless. I'm less than. All these things, that's where we take it the wrong way. So what does it actually mean? The disciples thought it meant, well, God failed. Let's be honest. That's what they thought. God failed. I was supposed to get this. This was supposed to happen, but God didn't come through. Jesus didn't come through. Didn't work out the way that I thought. And the last thing, crucial thing, is what are you going to do about it? Based on all that, what happened to me? What does it mean? Let's perceive it correctly. And then what am I going to do about it? Which direction am I going to go? Because we go through this process, whether we know it or not, and the direction we go reveals what we want. It reveals what we think is going to bring us comfort. No one falls back into sin because they think it's bad and I want to do bad things. No one does that. No one intentionally is trying to walk away from God. But they fall into it because they think it's going to bring them some sort of comfort. That's what the disciples were doing. They weren't thinking, oh, I'm leaving God, I'm rejecting God, I'm turning away from him. They're like, well, I'm going to go back to my hometown. I got to put the pieces back together. I got to try to find a job. I got to work things out. That's what they're trying to do. So go through this framework. That can be helpful. Maybe if it's something that you've been through in the past, or if not, you will go through something in the future.